What's up? What's up? Welcome back to another
Yo, yo,
episode of Unapologetically Black, Never Broken, Always Empowered. I am Brittany, joined by my co host Rich.
gang.
Yeah, and we're being joined by Anthony and Roderick. Rod, how are you guys feeling?
I'm doing fine. How about y'all?
Good,
Yeah,
good.
I'm good. I guess I'll kick it off. We always kick off every episode with a mental health check-in. So I guess I'll kick it off. My week has been blah, I would say. But it's something that happened. I'm telling you right now. Like holidays are stressful. Typically around this time frame, I'm not as stressed because I've already done all my shopping in like October, November. This year, a little different with the late move and some other stuff that came up. Shopping is just taking a little bit longer. Uh, so, but other than that, I'm good. How y'all doing?
Um, so I'm well. We usually start with our guests, but I guess we'll start with ourselves. I'm pretty good. I did have a little issue last week, um, with my job
Mm,
that got ironed out today. So that was good. And that kind of added to our stress with the holidays and
mm,
all of that coming up. So I'm glad that got ironed out. I have really bad social anxiety, and anxiety is around different like nuances and conversations. I don't like talking about money. Like
mm.
if I feel like I have to come to you about it, it's like it makes me feel very uncomfortable. And it was just kind of something I had to get over in my head
Right.
to have the conversation and to figure that out.
Yeah,
So
it's weird. I think a lot of people have issues when it comes to conversing about money.
right,
It's one of the major um, issues in relationships, and not just marriages or spousal relationships, but in
right,
friendships.
friendships, yeah,
In friendships in general, money is one of the major factors for people to either stay friends or not stay friends. When I borrow $20 from you, like nigga need to pay that back.
right. If you said Friday, I'm expecting Friday, and if I have to ask you on Saturday, now we have an issue, and why?
Yeah, because I shouldn't have to ask you. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
but we'll get
Uh,
into that.
right, Anthony, how are you feeling? Welcome back. If you guys do not remember Anthony, he was on our music and therapy episode a couple months ago, in October. So
Yep.
welcome back. How
Yeah.
are you feeling? How's your week been?
Yeah, thank y'all for having me again. My week it's pretty good. Can't complain too much. It's a shorter week for me, so this time of year I try to take a little bit more time off. A little break, a little self-care. So have a shorter week. I guess the next few weeks until the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to those breaks. But the week has been pretty okay so far.
Okay.
Awesome.
What about you, Rod? How you feeling?
I'm a little drained. This time of year is especially hard for the people that we work with, the individuals and everything. So they're kind of pulling me every which way. So I'm stretched pretty thin
Mm,
nowadays. I'm just working on a lot of stuff for some of our clients, some of the elderly ones. I'm trying to get them placed so that they won't be homeless, especially when it's cold outside.
Hmm.
It's a hard thing.
what state you in?
Virginia,
Oh,
Hampton, Virginia.
they get cold as fuck.
Exactly.
Well,
Right. Because you in Texas talking about cold outside.
Yeah, that's why I was like, cold. I mean, it's cold, but it ain't that damn cold.
no, it's not. Well, we've been lucky so far that it hasn't been like super cold yet.
Yet.
Mm.
Yeah,
So y'all didn't get hit with the snow like New York did. New York out of nowhere
not at
got
all.
hit with a bunch of snow.
It's
No.
50s and 60s here.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
But
still in our 70s.
I will say, like in the DMV area, winter is at its worst in like January,
January. Yep.
February. So
January, February is when we get the snow.
exactly. It's like towards the end. You think it's over, but nah.
Mm-mm.
It pulls you right back in.
For
Um,
Texas, that's its coldest time too. February, March is its coldest. We
mhm.
did get hit with a winter blizzard. Well, I said winter blizzard, winter storm. It wasn't a blizzard, but it was ice everywhere. And for Houstonians, you
Yeah,
might as well had
it's
to
tragic.
shut the city down because motherfuckers was in their house, trapped everywhere. It was ice all over the road. Nobody know how to drive.
That's Virginia.
Right.
It was wild, man.
Yeah, well,
Wild.
the worst part about it out here is that they act like never seen snow. Every year, it's a shock. They're out there salting the roads at the same time I'm trying to get to work. You were supposed to been out here. Like, why is it a surprise?
It's always late.
Exactly. But as we talk about this time of the year and the holidays and all of that, today's episode is about seasonal depression. And I do think it is important. If you've been a fan and have been listening to us for the entire year, we've been doing this. Last year in December, we actually dedicated the entire month to depression and mental health. Each episode we talked about a different aspect of it, and Rod was a part of those conversations then as well. But seasonal depression specifically is something that affects everyone. I mean, depression as a whole, anybody can become depressed or fall into depression, but seasonal depression is something that kind of hits home even if you don't have a history of any type
Yeah.
of mental health
Yeah.
issues or yeah.
I not to be insensitive, but I dislike using the word depression rather than like some people. It's just like just a sad time, right? Like if you're
Mhm.
just sad or homesick, I don't like for them to be like, yeah, I'm depressed. Like, no, you're not depressed, bro. You're just sad, which are two different things. I always the way I was taught depression is more of a clinical thing. Like you have to be diagnosed with it, right? Things like that. Where most of the guys, especially while I was serving, were just homesick. Like they just wanted to be home for the holidays and they couldn't go home because we were either in the field or deployed somewhere, or you just simply, had duty and you just couldn't do it.
Right.
And for me, for the most part, I'd be like, nah, bro, y'all are just sad. Find something to do. Like just go do something and you'll be okay. Go to the gym or fucking, go hang out at the strip club or something and you'll be all right. And for the most part, most of those guys, I would say about 99% of them were just that. Just motherfuckers that just missed their mama, missed their family. They were the younger guys. The older guys like me, where we had our family here with us, didn't really go through that as you didn't see that as much. For those NCOs and staff NCOs that had families there already. It was those younger guys, the PFCs that had just checked into the unit that did all of that. But that at least that's what I've seen when it comes to the season, right? The holiday time frame. So
Right. So with that being said, I guess, my first question is what is seasonal depression then? As Rich said, depression in his definition has to be clinically diagnosed. What would you, define seasonal depression as? And, anyone can take that. I'm not
I let Anthony go first if you want.
Of course, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of in the name, right? Seasonal depression for a lot of people. It does begin around the fall, time, the change of the season. When you research it, look up a lot of things. It's about the lack of daylight, the less sunlight, right? So sometimes you have people that live in areas that don't get much sunlight at all, right? And people will say, they have symptoms of depression, kind of like what Rich is talking about. Depression is kind of thrown around loosely a lot of time. So I get what people mean when they say I feel depressed or I'm depressed, but a lot of times I tell people they just have depressive symptoms, right? You have to meet a certain number of the criteria to be, like he's talking about, diagnosed with depression, or even with seasonal depression. There's criteria that has to be met. Like it can't just be one winter you felt sad or depressed or a list of things. It has to be multiple times, or 2 years in a row or whatever, the specific criteria. But that's kind of my small tidbit on the understanding I have of it. And Rod, of course, you can add whatever you have.
Yeah. So yeah, just to piggyback off of that, you're 100% correct. It's just depressive symptoms that occur around the same time every year, around the fall, and it lasts through the winter. Usually, you get some reprieve around springtime, but yeah, you get the people are indoors. Um, there's less sunlight, so people aren't outside. In nature. People are just you get kind of cabin fever, and then the holidays are around this time, so there are people like Rich was saying that can't be home, so are homesick. There are people who, reminisce about family members who may not be here, or reminisce about family times that they don't have anymore because they may have
Mhm.
grown older, grown apart, don't live in the same area anymore, can't do those same holiday traditions that they used to. And so people get sad. That's kind of the acronym for it. Seasonal affective disorder is sad. Um,
Oh shit! I've never even thought of it like that.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
so they some people call it seasonal depression. Some people call it seasonal affective disorder. The acronym is SAD. But
So
yeah,
would seasonal affective disorder be less clinical in the having to meet requirements, or is it the same and just another word for?
I think it's the same, just another word for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's
Yeah, one isn't more. They're pretty much the same.
How
Okay.
can so one of my questions is how can people tell the difference in what they would consider to be anxiety, and then what would, when it comes to a change of a new location, new area, versus depression, right? I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of people, they just have a lot of anxiety around that time frame because they're either trying to meet deadlines for a lot of projects at work that happens around the winter, buying gifts and almost going broke. A lot of people go broke or into debt a lot trying to get gifts for other people. How are you able to tell the difference between what's anxiety and what's actual depression?
yeah. I feel like with anxiety and depression, there's some overlap. They can appear similar, right? A lot of people sometimes don't know how to differentiate between the two, because with anxiety, a lot of people, have irrational thoughts, these recurring thoughts. But with depression, you can have those same things, and they also have physical symptoms which can be similar. um, Lack of energy, fatigue, different things, isolation. So for with in therapy, it's kind of our job to kind of ask more questions to see which boxes, I guess you could say, they check and on which side. Um, there's certain things that have to be met for each side. So some people will come in saying they feel anxious, but you find out they may be more depressed. And you don't understand that until you have longer conversations and do intakes and discuss more about those symptoms look like. But I think it goes back to, like you were talking about as well. People just, we say what we think we know. So we say, I feel anxious because
Mhm.
that's just what we feel. But then you learn more about what's happening with yourself and with your thoughts. You learn, more where these things stem from and triggers and different causes.
So there's no way to kind of just look at it and be like without going into a deep analysis, we're like, nah, bro, you're just having anxiety issues. Like, is there a way to do that? Or for me to do a self remedy for myself, before I go see somebody? Is there a way for me to do that? Or is it like, nah, bro, you should probably just go see somebody?
So,
Don't shake your head at me, woman.
You should probably go see somebody, bro.
so I mean, it's always good to get like a professional opinion. Like when you are sick, there's a whole bunch of different illnesses that have similar symptoms.
Hmm.
Similar to what Anthony was saying with anxiety and depression, there's some overlap. Just like when you have the cold and the flu, there are symptoms that overlap, but you may want to go get a doctor's opinion or professional opinion to determine whether or not you really have the flu or if it's just the cold, so that you can, treat yourself or get the proper treatment, because you don't want to be getting flu treatment. And even though some of the symptoms, are similar and you'll probably get relief from it, it's still the best to get, the
Mhm.
appropriate treatment for, what's really
Mhm.
going on.
Right.
Yeah, piggybacking off what he just said, right? Now things are a little bit more complex, right? You have cold, flu, or you have COVID, right? So
Mhm.
before COVID, you're like, I got the cold or flu. Now,
Mhm.
most people are like, man, you probably got COVID, or
It's
you
the
probably should
first
get away
one.
from people. And it's so
Right.
it's different. So you wouldn't, maybe now people are a little different, but before, if you felt a little cold symptoms, you the last couple of years, like, man, I probably got COVID or I might have COVID. So you would definitely go get a doctor's opinion and a testing.
Yeah.
Where before COVID, people were like, I probably can handle it with some
I feel like
over-the-counter situations.
I feel like since COVID, you don't get sick from anything else other than COVID.
That's it.
That's all you get.
That's it.
What?
You can break your foot and you have COVID. Like, it doesn't matter.
Sneeze, you got COVID, anything. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
For sure.
And
The
that's
automatic assumption. So I guess my question is, so obviously seasonal depression is seasonal, right? Do you guys ever see that in other seasons that aren't just fall into the winter, or do you ever see seasonal depression kind of transgress into general depression throughout the rest of the year? Or is it strictly what it is? I'm sad from, October to February, and then I get back into the swing of things.
Yeah. So the thing with that, differentiates seasonal depression from like clinical depression or like major depression is that it only lasts for the season and it's around the same time every year. It's around when the fall and winter time occur. I will say that for places that like that don't get much sunlight anyway, you would just see
Like in
higher rates.
Alaska.
Yeah, Seattle, the way it rains and stuff a lot. You will see just higher rates of depression, period, because it's the lack of sunlight and things like that. That's really like the big key.
okay. So like weather plays a major factor into whether someone may feel or not feel as depressed.
Yeah.
I think as humans, right?
Yeah.
Like today was a rainy day, and all day I was like, I want it to be over.
But for me,
And I don't call that depression. I'm just saying
I know
it's a
because
reaction.
for me, I walk out and I'm like, damn, it's gloomy or like it looks so depressing outside, and that's just due to the weather. But is that something that we should say, or is it something more like where we use the word? Because I know, like I said, we use the word depression loosely. So is that something that we should just kind of throw around? Like, man, it looks depressed. Like it looks so depressing outside. Or should we just say something different? Like, no, it's just very rainy. Because I know a lot of people get sensitive when you talk about depression and saying
not just
stuff
depression,
like that.
but your verbiage in a lot of cases are.
I mean, I'm trying. That's why I'm trying to find the best way to say
Verbiage.
this sentence without pissing people off.
I don't think you'll get canceled for saying
It's
the
depressing.
weather looks depressing or that
Hey.
that depressed. I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's one of the things that people are like, man, why'd you say that? Right? I think it's used so often that I use it. Being a therapist, I'm like, man, the weather's depressing today. But I don't even think twice about it. You know what I mean? But I guess it just depends on the environment you in or maybe, but I don't feel like people take that serious. But kind of going back to something you said, my wife's sister's in the Air Force in Alaska. So like she has talked about how depressed, especially the newer people are that aren't from, especially the ones who are from places like California, Florida, different places where the weather, the weather is much sunnier, warmer often, and people choose to live those places because of those reasons. So she's talked about how, depressed some of the people she works with is, some of the people, and, especially like the military, there are, conversations, especially these days, about suicide and about monitoring the people in the military, the ones, like you said, are homesick and different things like that, especially, the younger ones who haven't been away before necessarily. So now she's like, it's dark all the time. So you have to figure it out, whether that's getting treatment and therapy or something, or like you said, people being active in whatever ways and staying busy or studying or whatever they have going on.
So what are some healthy ways to be active to kind of help combat seasonal depression?
Well,
go ahead.
one of the first things is, we get vitamin D from the sunlight, and, that helps. Vitamins are important. It helps with your mood and things like that. So I would see your doctor to determine whether or not you have a vitamin D deficiency during this time? And if so, either get you like a sun lamp or take some vitamin D supplements to fill in the gaps for when you don't get the direct sunlight, because that's a big thing. What we're talking about the weather is really just the vitamin D that we get from the sun that affects the mood.
Yeah.
Okay.
And vitamin D is deficiency is more prevalent in African Americans.
Mhm.
Um, it's something that goes back to just black people trusting the medical healthcare systems and things like that, not going to the doctor, not knowing what their results and things like that. Because honestly, I didn't know I had vitamin D deficiency till I got blood work done, as I get in my 30s. And I was like, what are you talking about? I never even heard of that before. And he
Mhm.
just gave me like some vitamins. He's like, just take them over time. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I looked it up and I realized that a lot of black people struggle from that unknowingly. And then they're like, oh, I have these mental health, struggles and things like that. But it's a lot of times people taking care of their medical can, answer some questions about why they're in a certain mental health space as well.
And that kind of leads into my next question about suicide in general being higher in the Black community, in Black males than in Black women, and just speaking on our community as a whole, and just what do you believe contributes to that? And you saying, going to the doctor, which we know in our community is it's a big deal for Black men. They don't. Um, but are there any other factors that you think play into that?
Okay. Let me disclaimer: Richard's not a doctor. Okay,
We know.
just throw that out there. Richard's not a doctor. I do not have a PhD. I have a bachelor's in business, and I'm working on my master's. So, nah, not a doctor. But uh, I I don't
Disclaimer.
know, man. Just, yeah, I like to point that out there to people. It for me, I take issue with. I don't take issue with going to a doctor. I mean, if you guys want to go to a doctor, please go by all means. For me, it's hard finding a doctor that looks like me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, you guys are, but in
Right.
my area, where I'm at, they don't look like me, so it's hard for me to feel like they understand
Mm-hmm.
what I'm either talking about, what I'm going through, and stuff like that, because they don't they're not saying they're not me, but they just don't understand my history. So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about how Black people operate and how everybody gets together at grandma's house on Christmas Eve and how we do all this, all of that, I just feel like they don't understand that. And for me, it's something that I never seen growing up. My granddaddy didn't really go to the doctor that much,
Mm-hmm.
unless it was like, my chest, like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to the doctor because if not, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was one of those things where they be like, man, look, and as a man, it's just one of those things where I just learned, man, look, they don't care anyway. Suck that shit up and figure it out. And that's just one of those things that I've learned to do, is to just learn how to cope within myself. I point that out. Sometimes that's not the best way to do stuff. It's not always the healthiest way of doing things, but it's just the way that I've lived the last 32 years of my life. It's just through self coping,
Mm-hmm.
and self figuring it out. So that's just me.
It's not just you though. Like, that you're speaking for a lot of Black men, both former military and otherwise. So
Yeah.
grow. I mean, but that's a lot of the issues in the Black community as a whole. That's why we don't know about financial literacy, because our parents didn't teach us or didn't do it or wasn't aware. That's why we don't know about, you know what I mean? So like, it's a lot of those generational things that we have to break in. And we're talking about getting a physical. That's not even mental health. Mental health is a whole different barrier,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that to break down.
But and as far, and I know the question talked about suicide, but for me, and I'm going to say this again, Rich is not a doctor, and the views of mine are not necessarily the views of Unapologetically Black. I want to make sure that we understand this, because the way I view suicide is, I find it to be one of the biggest cop outs there is, right? And I know, physically speaking, obviously, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't. affect the person that committed suicide. It affects those that are around them. But I've always told myself that's not a way. Like it would literally just create more harm than it would good. Not necessarily for me, but for those around me, right? And I feel like that's just a very selfish thing to do. Because especially if you have kids, now someone else has to watch your kid, figure things out. Kids, if you were married, now your spouse has to take care of that responsibility. While mourning you, they have to now take care of responsibility of your load and theirs on with the kids and everything else. So to me, there's always another way, you
Mhm.
know, other than
Absolutely, there's always another way.
Yeah.
so. But
Yeah.
that's that again. I know I don't understand clinical depression. I don't understand how what goes in people's minds, and
Right.
that's the only way. And I don't know that,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna leave that to y'all. Y'all the doctors.
I'll comment on something you said earlier. Is
Mhm.
that's one of I believe the reasons for the higher suicide rate in Black males is just what you said of lack of access to therapists, clinical mental health professionals that look like them, right? So that's just it, no matter where you are, there's a shortage, there's a need. So there are a lot of people who do say, well, I may potentially go to therapy if I could find somebody who looks like me, and then
Mhm.
they can't. It's not simple. A lot of things, if it's not simple, then you just push it to the side because you've been doing all right for 32 years, right? So you probably can continue to manage. So I feel like that's one reason too, because a lot of untreated mental health things for people, especially Black men, go untreated, and then they progress or worsen, and then you get to the point of what you're talking about then of um, people seeing themselves more as a burden than being helpful, right? They're like, oh, two people should be able to manage and take care of the family, help, with bills, but a lot of those people that are depressed or severely depressed where they want to harm themselves typically see themselves as people would be better off if I wasn't around.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that leads them to those thoughts that oftentimes are irrational. But like you said, when you're struggling with, severe depression, everything you feel, think is real to you because you're in it, and nobody can really help you out of it until you kind of get severe treatment, as in therapy. A lot of people take medication, things of that nature.
So I have just a question to both of you. Um, are you psychologists or psychiatrists in your do you guys prescribe medicine or are
I'm
you
about to say, is
just
there a difference
therapy?
between the two?
So psychiatrists prescribe medicine.
Right.
They will
Mm.
give you pills for whatever, ailments you have. And then there's therapists and psychologists who talk therapy and,
Yeah.
get through to you in that manner.
Mhm.
So in your professions, are you guys therapists or do you guys prescribe medicine?
So I am a therapist. I don't prescribe medication at all.
Mhm,
Um, Whereas I see the benefit of medication, and I've seen it work like in real time.
mhm,
Um, I think that my expertise are best served being a therapist, only because with psychiatrists, they're mostly focused on the the medication part. They're trying to, medication isn't a perfect science, so they're trying to get the perfect cocktail or the perfect med that works for this person at the right dosage. They don't really get into your story or what makes you tick as much as a therapist does. So I'm more interested in getting to know what makes a person tick, what got a person to where they are. They're trying to get you stable on the medication. Psychiatrists are.
mhm.
Yeah, and I'm a therapist as well.
Okay. And I asked that because in my personal experiences with depression, my sister, so my mother was a double amputee. She was mostly blind, completely blind on her left side and very low vision on her right. And her health issues started as soon as my sister turned 16. So as soon as she got her driver's license, she was instantly my mother's caretaker. And depression in general runs in my family on my dad's side. So it hit her kind of hard. And when she finally came to my mom and was like, I want to talk to somebody, like I need to talk to someone. She um, she was referred to a psychiatrist who put her on, antidepressants, mood stabilizers. And it was in those medications, probably wrong dosage, because I'm also not here to shut down westernized medicine and pills. But it was because of those medicines she was on that caused her to attempt suicide. And she even said that it was an outer body experience. Like she ended up taking the whole bottle of pills. And as soon as she finished the last one, she immediately went to my mom, was like, I just took all these, and they, went to the hospital. But she was saying that it just was not her. She felt like she was being essentially controlled by an outside force, and just taking the medicines because she was off balance, essentially. So that's why I asked about just your experience and how you, with your clients and your patients, how you tackle it. Is it from a medical perspective, or is it from a therapy point of view? So
I've always left when I go to therapy. When I went to a therapist, I always left more confused than when I entered, right? Because I'm more logical. I deal in like, hey, what's your issue? Okay, I have a flat tire. Okay, you need to go get another tire, type of deal. But every time I went, I would leave. I'm like, yo, like, what the fuck? Like, I came in because I'm talking about my, I'm just getting out of the military. I need a job. I need this. I need that. And I have anger issues. And they would ask me like, well, why are you angry? Like, because
I just told you, I just
I
got
don't
out of the
have a
military.
job. Like, I just got out of the military. I don't have a job. Oh, well, what do you think of some things that you could do? Bitch, get a job. Like, are you listening to me? Like, why are you? And so sometimes I find like there's no logical point behind, like, a lot of times they just try to get you to think. And I'm like, I didn't come here to think. I came here to either A, vent, or B, get an actual solution. Like, go do this, then go do that. Should it be that way, or should it be more of the no, we spark you to think on your own to kind of get you to do what you want to do?
Well, healing comes from within. You can't have someone tell you how to heal.
Bullshit. Surgeons can sew up your goddamn arm and it'll fucking, there you
Well,
go.
we're not talking about an outside
We're
ailment.
not talking about the
We're
wounds that
talking
you can
about your
see.
mental,
Yeah, these are the wounds that you can't see.
the
So
invisible wounds.
it's not like surgery. But what you were saying, is it so logical problems typically have some type of emotion behind them. So when the therapist was probably asking you those questions, they were trying to get to like the root of it. They were, because you may come in with a problem. You say you had anger issues. Okay, well, let's get to why you're having these anger issues and where does it stem from. You may think that it comes from just not having a job, but when you delve deeper, it may be some feelings that I'm, inadequate, or I'm not, needed,
I'm
or
not
I
the man of the
can't
house.
provide, yeah. So it might be some other feelings there. So it may not just be a logical thing that they can just fix.
Yeah, like Rod's talking about, a lot of times what we see on the surface level might not be exactly how a person feels, right? Like if you feel, you might see anger, but it might be something else. It might be disappointment. It might be, failure. It might be, like they said, feeling inadequate. But you present it as anger. Some people cry. Some people isolate. Some people do other things. And people, we only know what we can see, so we assume like Rich is angry, but Rich might just be hurt.
Yeah,
Rich might
Brittany.
just be, different things like that. But
I don't care about your feelings, Rich. I'm just joking.
But I think, like, going back to what you said about therapy, for me, always, especially new, clients I have, I always give some disclaimers about what the therapy experience will be like with me, at least, because I always tell people it may be different than what you saw on TV. It may be different than what your friend, your family told you about therapy, because every therapist is different, right? You might see me and feel one way, you might see Rod and feel a different way. And I always tell people it's about fit. And I say, you don't have to keep seeing me if you don't feel like this is a good fit. And I let them know that they don't have to, because some people feel pressure. So it's like, if you go to the mechanic and he messes up your car, or you don't make you feel whatever, or you don't feel comfortable, would you keep going back and spending money with that person, whatever service, right? So it's like people do shop around for therapists because sometimes when you find the right fit, it's like anything. You
Right.
become more comfortable, you become more open, and you feel more honest, and you feel like the conversation is more easygoing. Where now you're just talking about things and you're discovering things in a easier fashion compared
Nice.
to when it's not a good fit and you feel like everything's forced and you feel like you said, leave more frustrated or confused.
Yep.
I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think that's another part too, though. For a lot of young black men like myself, money might be it. I've seen some therapists that charge $200 an hour, $300 an hour, and I'm like, I don't have that kind of bread. Like,
Mhm.
I'll just go talk to my boy who ain't gonna charge me $200 an
Mhm.
hour to talk to him. You know what I'm saying? Do you guys think that maybe sometimes pricing might sway people one way or the other?
I, I think it's like a lot of things, right? If there's there's services for everybody. You know, the quality, I can't always speak to that because I'm not in every level, but there's some people who are like celebrity therapists, right? They charge
Mhm.
whatever because they can and they found that it works for them. There's some people who only take insurance, there's people who only take private pay, which is like $150, $200. Then there's people who take like Medicaid, Medicare, who help
Yeah.
those populations specifically. And there's a great therapist in all the different levels, right? It's like buying clothes. Some of us can't afford everything to be designer. Some of us
Mhm.
can't go and buy everything. So I always
Right.
tell people, you like a lot of things, you have to find what works for you financially. And I
Yeah.
always that's a big disclaimer in therapy too, because one thing I don't want to do is add stress to someone by now they have another financial obligation. Where
Right.
it's like
Mhm.
if this session costs too much for you and that's adding stress to you, I feel like that is counterproductive for me because
Mhm.
we're trying to decrease and eliminate some things, not add to it. So
Right.
then that's I feel obligated to now help them try to find somebody who may take their insurance or may have a
Mhm.
sliding
I
scale,
feel. Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah. It's like a lawyer. You everything from a public defender to 10,000 to for me to show
Sometimes
up.
you
Yeah,
find a gym. Sometimes you'll find a gym that's a public defender, or you don't
Right.
necessarily have to go the super expensive route.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked, touched on veterans and enrich your experience with that. And last month was Veterans Month, and I actually looked this up, and I thought this was very interesting. So it's always said that 22 vets a day commit suicide, but as of 2022, and I thought this was a very interesting statistic. Um, Veterans that are in the VA health system, so actively seeing a therapist through the VA, have a suicide rate of 34.1 per 100,000. Those who are not in VA care have a suicide rate of 23.8 out of 100,000. So there's 10 less people who are not seeing a therapist through the VA that are actually committing suicide. So I actually want to ask this question to Rich, and then I'll ask Rod and Anthony. But why do you feel the suicide rate is higher for those who are actually seeing a therapist through the VA?
Disclaimer: Rich is not a doctor, and his opinions are not necessarily those of
But you go to the
unapologetic black.
VA though. That's
I
why I
do no.
asked you.
That's why I'm getting ready to say this. The VA is trash, absolute dog shit. I mean, it is by far one of the worst things ever. Here are a few reasons why. One,
Want to know why? Here's why. Go ahead.
what I can schedule. I'll call the VA today after sitting on hold for 45 minutes. I'll get in touch with a rep who will say, okay, we can make your appointment, sir. Your appointment is going to be March 9th. It's December 6th. And the first time I can see somebody is fucking 4 months from now. There's so much shit between now and 4 months from now that will happen that eventually I'm just gonna say, you know what? Fuck it. I won't even go. Because I didn't forgot. It's 4 months from now. The VA is terrible. Their resources are more spent on surgeons and high tech fucking surgery than it is for those like therapists. and just common people. I believe also that the VA is over. It sucks, but it's oversaturated with veterans in the sense of there's one VA hospital in our area, which is in Houston downtown. That area services just about 5 of the surrounding cities: San Antonio, Austin, Dallas. I don't know if there's one in Dallas, but I think around Dallas, Houston, Cypress. So if you live in the surrounding areas, which are about 2.5 to
I was
3
gonna say
hours
they're all huge.
inward,
Every city you just
every
mentioned.
city I named is a major city. Come to one VA. So imagine being told that your appointment is 4 months from now and you have to drive 2.5 hours to go see a doctor for 30 fucking minutes.
Mhm.
But you can't go anywhere else because your VA insurance will not cover anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's trash. They treat veterans worse on the outside than they treat the military on the inside. It's easy for me to go find a vet or I'm sorry, therapist while I'm in because I have TRICARE, which is a prime insurance that will take that a lot of
Anyway,
therapists will
they
take.
love that.
They love TRICARE.
They
They'll
love
take it. They'll take TRICARE before they take Medicaid. Before they take it,
Mhm.
they will take TRICARE. When you get out, though, TRICARE is only offered to those who retire, which is also trash. Those that are medically separated, and active duty. It's not offered to an actual vet.
Mhm.
And for those reasons, I find that most people are like, you know what? I'll be happier on the outside than trying to add all the stresses of going to the fucking VA.
Right.
The waiting, the parking is atrocious. I have to wake up at 7 to be at an 11 o'clock appointment to sit around and wait. The depressing mood because it's 95 fucking million old people there. All vets from Korean, Vietnam War that look like all hell has beat the shit out of them. And it's a depressing sight. And then a lot of those therapists are civilians, and that's one thing. Like I talked about finding people that look like me in therapy. For vets, they want people that are like them, other veterans, not the civilian doctor that you found down the street.
Mhm.
No, the veteran that when I talk about what happened in Afghanistan, they understand what happened in Afghanistan because either them themselves have been there or they've been to a war themselves, so they understand. They understand what PTSD looks like, what it is, and how it's not just a cop out for certain things. But I don't think the VA takes its veterans serious. I don't think they take them seriously. And they just kind of scoff them off and they just kind of brush them off and just leave them to the fucking wind. But that's my long rant on the VA. It's trash.
Right. Without having to go into detail. um, okay. Well, I thought that was very interesting in general. So to speak to your point, I understand that the VA is oversaturated. Um, and it's sad because if there's anyone who needs mental health services, it is people who have been through, what you've been through. And you don't even have to actually deploy to have seen some shit or gone through some
Oh
shit that fucks with you.
no, not at all.
So, right.
You'll see shit just by dealing with other people in your unit who may have been um to theater and back, and just dealing with their leadership styles, how they treat people, how you
Mhm.
treat people. A lot of our women, female veterans, the things that they have to deal with through sexual assault, rape, harassment, all kinds of things that they deal with while in coming out. Like it's a plethora of things that they deal with. Theater is just one of them, but there's a lot of stuff that you could deal with. The racism that exists inside the military, and a lot of our active duty members won't say it because they're still active duty. But I don't give a fuck. I'm going to say it. Yes, the racism that exists till this day inside of the military.
Right.
It's one of those things that any sane person, I would tell them, no, bro, go to college. like you can get the same thing in college without the stressors of another grown man trying to tell you what to do over and over again.
True. um, but yeah, did you guys have anything you wanted to add in that? No.
So I guess like Rich was saying, that the availability of the the specific type of therapist that each person may need in order to be successful is very limited. Like, I remember when I was working at an agency, I was the only male therapist there. Then there was another agency I worked at. I was the only black male therapist there. So it's and then the population that we were serving at the time, I was working with kids and families. Um, it every parent was like a single mom, and she wanted a male therapist for her teenage son,
Mhm.
so that he could learn the stuff about manhood and things like that, get some discipline, and learn how to express himself appropriately. It is such a lack of the especially our people in this field, that it, by the time you go through all the therapists, like Rich was saying, you look and you look and you look, um, and if it's not easy, you don't want it. So
What up, Latu?
by that time, you may not even want the service by the time you finally find the person that you think might be a fit for you, because it's you be like, I don't know about this person, where they been at all this time. I've been searching and searching, I haven't found anybody.
Yeah.
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 There's also um, I don't know how many people know because they probably don't apply for therapist jobs at the VA, but VA has certain standards that have to be. You have to go to a certain school to be a certain type of master's program to
Mm-hmm.
get a VA job as a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, which denies like a lot of therapists, right? So they thought by creating such a high standard for the therapists that work for the VA, they actually did the opposite. It denied a lot of people from different backgrounds the opportunity to be a therapist or social worker at the VA. And it's been an ongoing discussion for a while because there's people who apply all the time for those social work and therapist jobs, but they're denied based off of their school not having a specific credentialing or certification. And that's something that, the general public don't know about because you're not looking for a therapist job.
Right.
And that's something I found out a couple of years ago because I did apply for one. And I went to HBCU for grad school, and they were like, it wasn't a K-CREP school, which is this certain
Yep.
credentialing or certification for a counseling program. And then you look up the list of them. There's some states that may only have one or two of those type of colleges that are a lot of times the big colleges, like real, like UCLA or something, right?
Right.
So then that limits like millions of people, right? So then they're like people like you who have served and dedicated time in your life and all these other things. You're like, why don't we have quality therapists? Why don't we have diverse therapists? They don't tell you because we deny them all because of this law that was put in place. Right. So there's things like that you would never know about. And that's probably a lot of reason, unfortunately, a lot of veterans aren't getting the quality of care they need or deserve.
Yeah. And to me, that's the thing. It's quality, because you've overworked the therapists that are there. And by the time I go see my therapist, she's already seen or he's already seen 9 people that day. And they're spending 45 minutes per person. They've already seen 9 people that day. And not to say that they don't care, but to the way I feel, by the time they get to me, they're tired. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit anymore. Like, whatever we can say to make him feel like he feels good and then get him out of my face. Because I got a full schedule of 15 people today. I have a full schedule of 15 people tomorrow, so on and so forth. And all they do is spend most of their day in their office listening to stuff. And I feel like after a while, they get burnt out because the VA is not quality, it's quantity. They want as many people in and out as soon as possible. But you pretty much deprive veterans of quality care, which is why a lot of us really hate going. And if we can just find our own insurance, a lot of us would never go. We'd never go to the VA. If they offered TRICARE as a veterans insurance program benefits that you pay for, even though you don't really pay much for it in, but if they offered a good rate when you get out, I guarantee you, a lot of veterans would never go to the VA. Never.
Yeah, Jamal said my therapist is tired and overworked. She quit before my appointment, and I haven't found anyone good at the VA since. So, I understand. So, as far as the people in our life, right? It's holiday season. Even if it isn't depression, they're feeling down. What would you say, or what would you suggest? Is said to a person in our life that we care about that may be feeling depressed, or who come to us saying, I couldn't get out of bed today. What would you suggest as our therapist friends? That we say to our friend or our loved ones. How can we help?
I would say the biggest thing is utilize your support system. Um, that is big. If you have a support system, I can't tell you how huge that is. It makes a big difference when someone has family and friends who care and check in on them, as opposed to somebody who doesn't, especially around this time of year. So definitely utilizing your support system. Um, keep doing the things that you typically do. I know that you may you if you like to go on walks and stuff like that, you may have to switch up your schedule or make adjustments and things like that. But make time to do the things that you enjoy doing, um, regardless of whether the weather is gloomy or not. Continue with the routine, the your positive outlets that you have. Um, those would be the big two for me is you know stick with your routine of your positive outlets and utilize your support system.
Yeah. To kind of piggyback back off of that, a common theme I hear from people in therapy is they just feel like people don't check on them. So, it seems very, small, but some people really want you to just ask, how are they? How are you doing? How's your life? How's your day? How's the kids? Different things like that. And so you talk to people often and don't ever really discuss how they are doing. You talk about a specific subject, or what are we doing for Thanksgiving? What are we doing for Christmas? Where are we going? But you never ask them, like, how are you doing? Overall. And people then that makes them feel like nobody cares about them. They're like, I help people, I talk to people all the time. Nobody actually ever asked me, because we're prideful people, right? Who wants to say, check on me, ask me how I'm doing before we start talking, right? And then it gets kind of weird, it gets kind of awkward. Then I feel like they think that defeats the purpose, right? So those are conversations people have in therapy sometime as well. It's like I talk to all these people, whether it's at work or home, personal life. Nobody ever asks how I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people aren't doing well. But it's hard to just be forthcoming, but it's easier if somebody just asks you, and then you can start that conversation.
Yeah, and you don't feel like, if you're the the friend that's checking in, don't feel like you have to have like magic words or say this special phrase or whatever, to check in on somebody. You can just be like, hey man, you good? You need something? You okay? You want to talk?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be and you don't have to have all the answers. It's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just need somebody to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we don't have all the answers either.
Definitely don't.
So people just want to be heard and seen, and to have a space to talk about, whatever they have going on sometime.
Right. Some people just want somebody that'll help them figure out the answers to their problems. That's what we do as therapists. We don't all have the answers, but we can figure it out together. We got some tools, you got some tools. Let's put our tools together and see if we can figure out this thing together.
Well, as a non-therapist, one of my answers is always to go to the gym. I know a lot of people they scoff and laugh at it, but no, legit exercise actually can help combat symptoms of depression. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it stops the shit, but symptoms of it. I get up, I work obviously I work at a gym, but I get up, I go, and I work out whenever I'm aggravated or upset. I pick something up heavy and I put that shit down, and I go back and forth. And a lot of people I see, I every day faithful. I open up the gym at 3:45 in the morning, and faithfully every day I have the same guy that comes in every day at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. He's a veteran. He comes in, he works out for about an hour and a half, and then he leaves. And I want to say it's a part of his, his routine that kind of helps him get going throughout the day. But when I get in there, man, a lot of people in the gym are friendly. They don't mind having a conversation with you, and it helps with the interaction. So I always say, get out, go to the gym, do your hobbies. If you have a hobby, if you don't have a hobby, find a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
do it when it doesn't involve any criminal activities. Do that. So I play Pokemon. That's why I met a lot of my friends, like Brittany and like Jamal. That's what I do. And so, as a hobby, if I'm feeling upset, I'll get on, I'll talk shit, and I'll bait one of them into a Pokemon battle, and then I go at it from there. Uh,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, same thing Rich said as far as finding communities. Maybe you really feel like you don't have a support system. Maybe you feel like your friends never reach out to you, but there are communities. I mean, everyone on this screen right now, I have met through the internet. You know what I mean? Like, so finding the communities that fit for you, that is a niche for you. I also think this is a very important time to say that, at 2 o'clock in the morning, if no one's there to answer the phone, the suicide hotline does exist. And it doesn't have to be you're ready to go that far. It could be you need someone to talk to. And that number is 988 now. It's no longer a full phone number to remember. So you have 911 for medical emergencies, police emergencies, and you have 988 for mental health emergencies. So
right.
utilize that in the periods in which you may not be able to talk to a friend or a family member, or you just feel like they're not there for you.
Yeah.
So
And last rant, if you're gonna be that person that says call me anytime, pick up the actual damn phone. I I don't say call me anytime because I know that that's not true. Now you can call me and I'll most likely
get back to
answer.
you.
I'll get back to you. But if you say, yeah, man, don't worry about it. You can call me at any time. I say that to very specific people that I know no matter what, I will answer the phone. My wife, my cousin, my best friend, obviously my children. But if you're going to be that person, be that person. People actually reach out to people like that when they say that. So if Jamal says, hey Rich, you can call me at any time, and then I call Jamal at 2:30 because I need somebody to talk to, and then he don't answer, that's, to me, that kind of hurts a little bit, because you're like, bro, you said call you, and every time I'm trying to reach out to you, you don't answer.
Right.
So if you're gonna be that person that say that, mean that shit. If not, tell people to call you during your business hours.
And speaking of business hours, this episode and every episode is brought to you by RDI Financial. They work day round 24/7 to ensure that your credit needs. Yep, yeah, they do. They're working all day long, 24/7, Christmas morning to Christmas
Nah, you can
night.
go ahead and that's a lie. We ain't working
No,
like that.
but make sure you guys hit up RDI-Financial for all your credit and financial needs. It's holiday season. I know you're spending that
Yes,
credit card
yes.
up, so make sure you guys hit him up to make sure your stuff shit. Your stuff shit. While your shit is good. That's what we're gonna say. We're gonna leave it at that, because words, right? It's the end of the podcast. I can't get them together. Make sure you guys hit us up on all forms of social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe. Did you guys want to plug yourselves? Rod, Anthony, you have anything you want to drop in there?
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
No, Ross said don't follow me.
Right.
You don't
He's
want
like,
no
I'm busy. Okay. But I know, Anthony, you have anything you want to plug? You doing any DJing this season?
No, I'm semi-retired right now. I'm doing the
Okay.
most. So just the end of the year, I'm taking it easy. Besides my wife's holiday party, that's the only thing I got planned, DJing. So
Gotcha. Well, until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay unapologetically black. Have a good night.
Gang.